peaking as a Category 4 in the Eastern Pacific in tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 23rd. On the map of world tropics, Gilma is a Category 4, currently with winds around 130 miles per hour and a pressure of 947 millibars. Elsewhere, Tropical Storm Shanshan is active in the Western Pacific and the Eastern Pacific. Gilma is peaking right now, and Invest 92E is behind that, and an 80% chance of formation. In the Western Pacific, Shanshan is a big threat to Japan currently, and is forecasted to make landfall as a high-end Category 2 or a low-end Category 3. Currently has winds around 60 miles per hour and a pressure of 994 millibars. On this day, in 2004, this is actually, I'm pretty sure this was the first ever on this day that we did. Like the very first video, this was the on this day. Which is pretty wild if you think about it. But anyway, Typhoon Chaba was peaking as a Category 5 with winds of 185 miles per hour and a pressure of 893 millibars. Elsewhere, Irie was a Category 1 and Frank was also a Category 1. But if you ask me, I think Chaba was like the real main event here, like the main character right here. Anyway, in the Atlantic, the next name is Francine, followed by Gordon. In the Eastern Pacific, the next name is Hector, followed by Ileana. And in the Central Pacific, the names are Wale, Yulina, Pina, Olina, Nola, Moki, Lala, Kelly, Iona, and sadly we're losing a valuable source of content because Hone got named, baby. Let's go! Sadly, there will be no more Hone memes, but here is the map of world tropics, really, and here is the northeastern Pacific, really. This is wild. This has been 5 years waiting for him, and he's finally here. Passing it on to Braylon with the GFS.
Here is Gilma on the satellite imagery. You can see Gilma earlier today had a cloud-filled eye and was also only a Category 3 earlier today. But it is a Category 4 now. Looking at the recent imagery, the eye has really begun to pop itself out. The structure of the eye is also becoming more well-defined, and the storm in general currently is looking much, much better. And the eye does actually look like it is reaching deeper into the storm now. But let's go ahead and get to the storm we've been waiting 5 years for. Here is the legendary tropical storm Hone. At the beginning of the frames here, you can see the storm does not look very good, which makes sense at the beginning of the frame here. It's only a tropical depression. It's only 1C at this point, not even Hone. It was named at the 2 p.m. advisory, though, and the greatest meme hurricane has arrived, but the storm's not blowing up too much convection. It has established a decent rotation there, and this could peak Sunday likely as a high-end tropical storm, maybe a low-end Category 1. We're currently forecasting a Category 1 peak due to the conditions, so yeah, it's also pulling in a lot of cloud cover into it right now. It's because the actual range that the storm is reaching over is quite large, but the actual storm itself is tiny, the second smallest storm on record currently, only behind Tropical Storm Marco. Let's move on to Shanshan. Here is Shanshan on the satellite imagery. It's kind of just been sitting there blowing up convection currently. It's not really moving too much. It is moving a little bit. But it is very, very slow right now. Not moving very quickly, which is both a benefit and not a benefit to the storm at the same time because it gets more time to intensify, but upwelling, if it sits in the same place, which it's about to get a move on, upwelling's not going to have much of an effect on it. it is definitely taking advantage of the conditions it's in right now. It's gone from a tropical depression to a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm in only 24 hours. But Shan has kind of been taken out of the spotlight after Gilma went rampant yesterday. And Hone. So let's move on to the GFS. Here we are on the GFS. I'm going to go over to the Eastern Pacific. You can see our main, the main focus is still Gilma. Okay, don't get hyped up about Hone. The main focus is still Gilma. But GFS also seems to think that Gilma is peaking right now, and that I think that's 92E behind Gilma there does become a hurricane. Looks like quite a strong one too, peaking there at 963 millibars, which is either Category 2 or a Category 3. For the Eastern Pacific, that's probably a Category 3. So that is, again, quite a strong hurricane. And not too much else, but both those storms do end up moving into the Central Pacific. Here is Central Pacific, speaking of. There is Hone. We're going to focus on Hone here. GFS has Hone peaking there around 989 millibars, which would be in line with the NHC's forecast, which would be a high-end tropical storm. And Hone sadly has dissipated about a week from now, which is sad because we waited 5 years for the storm. I know there is a specific model that is calling Hone to peak at 190 miles an hour right now, which is insanity. But there is Gilma moving in there into the Central Pacific and dying off. That other hurricane, that'd be Hector. Gilma skirting the north coast of Hawaii at 1,012 millibars. And that would be Hector turning north there, probably turning extratropical. But 190 miles an hour from Hone would be something. That's not going to happen, though. That is basically 0% chance. The conditions are not good enough for that. Here is the Western Pacific. There is Shan. Becoming a typhoon fairly soon here, which is, that's what we're expecting. And becoming a very powerful typhoon there, too, peaking at 944 millibars, which would be a Category 3 or a Category 4. I believe that is Hone right there. And another storm moving... what is happening here? Where is Shan? Okay, there's Shan. Making landfall in Japan there, slightly weaker, probably about a Category 2. Another storm there forming, then another one here in between China and Taiwan, then another one in the center of that Japan storm becoming a typhoon, that Taiwan storm becoming a typhoon, then that becoming a typhoon, hitting Japan as a Cat 2. Actually, a Cat 3, I think. That is a 957 millibars, so that's a Category 2 or a Category 3. And looking at that right there, that I believe is about a Category 1 or a Category 2. And I know the GFS has a little bit of something in the North Indian Ocean. I'm going to just skim through this. I don't want to waste you guys' time. I'm just going to skim through it real quick. That is a tropical cyclone right there. As a tropical cyclone there, peaking around 992 millibars. That's a very brief storm there. But that is a tropical cyclone. That would be Asna. Also, we knew the names for the Western Pacific and the North Indian Ocean, but the next names in the Western Pacific is Yagi and Lipi, and North Indian Ocean, I believe, is Asna and Dana. But one storm here in the North Indian Ocean in the next few weeks. I mean, we're almost to September at this point, so that's fairly common. Satellite imagery. Okay, I was about to say, is that still marked 91E? No, it's not. Gilma here. It is looking much better than it was in last night's bulletin. It does look like it might be weakening a little bit now. The eye is beginning to get a little bit smaller up on that northwestern quadrant. But looking at the whole frame here, cloud tops are still fairly decent. They're around minus 70. So this is a very, very strong hurricane right now. As you saw, NHC only going with Category 3, high in Category 3. We think that's a little bit low. We are going with 130 miles an hour. The NHC is only going with 125. Which I'm going to pull up the current satellite imagery of Gilma here. This is what it looks like. So we think this is a Category 4 currently. I wouldn't be surprised if NHC goes with Category 4 as well. But this overall is a very good looking storm. It's a very slow moving storm too. It's only moving at about 5 or 6 miles an hour. 91W is still active? How? But Shan Shan here, cloud tops are still very, very good, and the storm has kind of lost a little bit of its structure too. It went from relatively circular all the way down to this. So it has lost a little bit of structure, but cloud tops are still very, very good, still up into the minus 90s. Maybe upper, yeah, it's about upper minus 80s. But Shan Shan still does look very good, and this could possibly still become a typhoon. Japan does not need another typhoon after Ampil, even though Ampil was not that bad. But they don't need another typhoon, especially one they're forecasting to be as strong as Shan Shan, which is a category, I think a high-end category 3 peak, maybe even category 4. And Hone. Here is Hone. Cloud tops have been just massively degrading. Briefly hit up into the minus 80s there. But cloud tops have been just massively degrading around the center of the storm. So who knows if this is even going to last much longer at all. Which is sad, because we waited 5 years for it. I know we keep bringing that up, but it's a monumental moment in history. But cloud tops have taken a massive jip from the minus 80s up to that. Looks like the max would only be around the upper minus 60s. So that is not very good cloud tops for it. But for the most part, it doesn't look too bad on satellite imagery. Hone does have a little bit of a circulation there. It is moving mostly forward, but it does have a little bit of a circulation. Not a massive, fully developed one like a hurricane would have, but it does have a circulation. It is looking decent on satellite imagery. But that is it for tonight's tropical weather bulletin. Hone's here. That's all we got to say. Like, subscribe, goodbye.